talking to Mr. Pease this morning, and I said, Alan, are you as tired as I am? And he said, oh yes. And Alan and I are both worn out. And I want you to know, and there's a reason why I'm telling you that, and you'll see in just a minute. But it's really interesting that the more, I don't know if I've had a more enjoyable, but more exhausting Lent than this. Well, with all the prayer groups, with all the Bible studies, and with all sorts of other things that are going on. And Alan, I get to take next week off. Alan has to work a few days, and then he finally gets to get away, and good for you, and I'm happy for you. I want to show you what I'm really getting at regarding this being tired, and because when we get tired, we neglect certain things, and when we neglect certain things, then we make mistakes. And then when we make mistakes, we just want to go off and hide. Although Alan and I don't make mistakes. If you recall last Sunday, Palm Sunday, this is to set up this very short meditation today on Good Friday. If you recall, what I talked about last Sunday on Palm Sunday was that Holy Week, in at least some sense, is a statement about the compressed Christian life, and how we progress, or we journey or grow in our relationship with Jesus Christ. And by that I mean those, and I mean just that, those who grow. I'm not talking about those who, for whatever reasons, need to stay in a particular place all their life, which is usually what I call young Christianity. But if you recall, we talked about how on Palm Sunday the Christians couldn't wait for Jesus to come. They were excited about him. Remember, I likened it to being in camp when you're a youngster and you give your life to Jesus, and everything sparkles, and Jesus is wonderful, and you're in love with him, and rightfully so, not a thing the matter with that. And you want to tell the whole world about who God is, and about Christ's love, and all of that's real and legitimate. And then as we begin to grow and we begin to mature in our relationship with Jesus Christ, and particularly with his body on earth, which is the church, then we begin to run into snags, and we begin to run into difficulties, and we begin to run into confusions. And oftentimes the very church that we love the most ends up being an institution that at least we feel lets us down, and it does sometimes. And then we see our ministers, or we see our spiritual advisors, or we see members of our particular church, or we see religious leaders in the United States, or globally for that matter. Their feet are exposed as clay, and we get more and more disillusioned. And eventually what happens is our faith gets, in a very serious sense, weaker. That's the wrong word. It becomes less interested in what we have been told was the truth about God. And eventually what happens, for a lot of people who are very spiritually minded and who are focused on trying to mature in Jesus Christ, they finally throw up their hands and they say, I've had it. I've had it with the church. I've had it with this silliness. I've had it with the hatred. I've had it with arguing with the people of the church whether the wall should be painted green or red. You know, seriously. I've had it with worrying about whether the flowers should be put here, and people get mad because they want it to be put here, and then they'll get on the phone and call people. I've had it. And I've had it with the denomination, and goes on and on. And I see what happens is that, certainly this is what happened to me, you start out with that flush and that love and that joy and that gratitude of Jesus, and you sing all these songs, and then as you get more and more engaged in the serious work of Jesus Christ, you can become more and more disillusioned and more hurt. And I think that what happened in Holy Week, the earliest followers of Jesus had a particular idea of who they wanted Jesus to be. And that was based on their understanding of Scripture. They didn't just pull this out of thin air. And And then they saw throughout that week that Jesus wasn't who they needed him to be and who they wanted him to be. And because he didn't fit in with what they needed and what they wanted, when push came to shove and they were held accountable, they ran away. And I said that on Sunday, and it is significant, although we'll talk about it another time. Everybody ran away except the women. Well, one man stayed. And the women are the only one that figured something out about Jesus. And women were the only ones, for the most part, that figured out the resurrection first. And there's something about that, namely that the people who were literally on the very bottom of society are the ones who are able to figure out the exaltation of Jesus Christ. And that the religious leaders were unable to do that. Certainly the elites were unable to do that. And it's the marginalized who are able to figure that out. And it's the marginalized, the women in this case, who on Good Friday are the ones that are standing beneath the cross of Christ. Everybody else has run away. And so it's the women who stay and carry the standard of Christ. And of course, as you know, because of misuses of Scripture, women are still marginalized and abused in churches today. It's the women who figure it out, not the men, on Good Friday. Now, what happens on Good Friday, and I was thinking about this theme that I was developing on Palm Sunday and the compression of the Christian journey, is that, so by the end of the week and on a couple minutes before noon on Friday, those assembled, they look up and they see this person that they had followed for 3 years, this person that they had loved for 3 years, this person they had, in a real sense, adored and worshipped, although they didn't understand what that meant, and who had given them hope for the future and a reason for living in the present and a forgiveness of their past. They saw in that tableau of living and dying their very reason for life killed in front of them. And that ends up being the death of belief. There's no reason to believe anymore. And we misunderstand that. And I need to emphasize that. They see all reason for life gone. Dead. And that's where we're supposed to leave ourselves today. Not dead, but to leave ourselves today looking at the cross of Christ. Benji?